Hi, it's Sebastian here from Noble Frugal Studio, and today I'm going to teach you guys all about the tools and features you'll need to be familiar with in order to develop your own animation workflow in Opentoonz. In this video, you're going to learn how you can plan your animation, how to animate using Toonz raster and Toonz vector levels, and how to export your animation to an AVI file. So I'm going to break down animating into 4 phases: the thumbnail phase, the rough animation phase, the final animation phase, and then the post phase. So the thumbnail phase is like your outline for the animation, or a brainstorm of your ideas. The rough animation is like a sketch of your complete animation, so you work out all the movements and stuff like that. And final animation is the cleanup of the lines and colors. And finally, post is the exporting or adding effects. So we're going to start with the thumbnailing phase. Now for this animation that I'm going to make, I'm going to use this character I drew yesterday. They don't really have a name yet. They're going to be our honorary tutorial example. So I just drag and drop this picture into Opentoonz. It appeared on the timeline that we set up in the last video, and I'm going to hit the Animate tool, hit Control, and drag it forward and drag it up. So it's going to get smaller. I'm going to place it over here by clicking and dragging. I just want to remind you guys, if you have any questions at all in this tutorial, make sure to join my Discord server so that I can help you with screenshots and GIFs, or even videos that are taken from my screen on my computer, because if I try to help you in YouTube, there's not a lot I can do if the problem's complicated or needs detailed explaining. Okay, so the thumbnail phase that we're going to get started with right now can be done on paper, or it can be done in the software. For this video, I'm going to do it in the software, but I prefer to do it on paper personally. I'm going to turn down the opacity on this image so it's not interrupting us. I'm going to hover down to this little arrow next to column 1, click it, drag the opacity down to 35. All right, so in order to draw, we need a level. So I'm going to go to this little X sheet toolbar right here that we used last time. And if you do not have this toolbar, all you have to do is hover over to Windows and scroll down to command bar. I'd missed it. And then you can drag this and place it wherever you want to. I know that was confusing in the last video, but also what you can do is right click on, if you go to Basics tab, and you can see all the other columns. Right click on one of these, hit New Level, and you can create a level there as well. But for this, we're going to create a Toonz raster level. So we're going to click this middle button right here that says New Toonz raster level. We're going to name it. Make sure you always name your levels, simply because if your animation ever gets lost or it seems like it's being corrupted, you'll be able to find the files and save your animation. So we're going to name it Thumbnail. All right, so hit OK. And now we're going to do just a basic brainstorm of what our animation is going to be. So I'm going to go to the brush tool, and we're going to start drawing. So I'm going to draw just like a basic representation of her head. So yeah, definitely keep the thumbnailing phase very simple, because it's just a basic idea of what we're animating. All right, and now to make another frame, I'm going to click on the second frame here in the timeline, and I'm going to draw. If that does not create a frame for you, you have to hover over to File, Preferences, go to Drawing, and then next to Auto Creation, click this and select Use X Sheet as Animation Sheet. That'll automatically make a frame anytime you draw somewhere. So that's very useful for saving time. For my animation, I want to be able to see the previous frame that I just made in order to plan my animation. So I'm going to right click right here, do Activate Onion Skin, and now we can see the frame before us. I'm going to draw another circle, maybe right here or so. I'm hitting the mic. And then I'm going to draw our character facing in a 3/4 sort of view. All right, so now I'm using the arrow keys to flip through my animation. I'm using left and right. And so it looks like we have 2 frames. This is what I basically want my animation to look like. And so the point of the thumbnailing phase is you want to know the who, what, where, why of your animation. Why is this person doing what you're going to animate? That'll help you to convey emotion. So this is just a person turning their heads. They seem kind of in shock, so maybe that can be the reason as to why they're turning their head. With that done, we're going to move on to the rough animation phase. This is where we actually do some animation. It's not going to look the prettiest, but it's going to get down all the lines we need in order to finish the drawing. So what we're going to do is we're going to create another raster level. We're going to click this button, New Toonz raster level again, name it rough, and we're going to hit OK. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the thumbnail opacity lower so we can still see it. I'm going to put that down to 30. Now we're moving on to the rough animation in Opentoonz. I'm going to take our drawing here, our reference, and I'm going to drag it over here so we can have it where we need it. So actually, I'm going to put it over here because we need that front view first. We're going to click back on column 3, which is our rough animation, and also don't forget to name your columns. I'm going to name this RA for rough animation. This is going to be TH for thumbnail, and this is going to be REF for reference. So definitely don't forget to name those. Just double click on the name because when you're adding effects to animations, you're definitely going to want to know the names so that you don't get confused on which one's what. The first thing we're going to start with is drawing the key poses. So that's going to be a lot like our thumbnail. We're going to draw this front view and then our character looking to the side. And those are going to be a key poses for our animation. There's only 2 for this animation, which is nice and simple, so we're going to get started. The first thing I'm going to do is draw a circle using the shape tool. So you select the shape tool right here, it's right under the brush. Hit the shape and go to circle. Click right in the center and we should get a nice circle like that. Alright, that looks pretty good. I'm actually going to make my thumbnail a different color so it can look light in comparison to our sketch animation. There we go, that's perfect. Hitting the select tool, I'm going to move the circle in place. There we go. And now we have a circle for our animation. So you see we have the palette up here and we have the style editor down here. I'm going to drag this black color right here up to a gray color because it is our sketch and it's not our final lines. So now I'm going to draw a line in the middle so that we know where the chin is going to end. It's going to end about here. All right, so as you can see, the brush I'm using has a pretty wide range of thickness, and you can turn pressure on right here in Opentoonz, and you can also set presets. So right now I have my size, the minimum size I have is 1. So if I draw really, really lightly, it's very, very thin. But the maximum size I have is 29.7, which is pretty thick. So I'm going to hit preset plus, and I'm going to name this rough animation. Or we can actually just name it sketch. There we go, hit OK. Now we're on the sketch preset. And anytime we change anything, it'll go back to a custom preset, but I'm gonna go hit back sketch. And now we have this preset for our animation. And the keyframes basically represent where the animation is going. You always want to plan where your animation is going. So for example, if you have a ball that starts here and ends here, you always want to draw these 2 frames, the start and the end first, so you know exactly where your ball is going. That's part of planning your animation, because if you don't draw these 2 first, you'll just draw this one and start animating in the in-betweens to getting there. And as you can see, the ball has distorted in shape quite a bit. But if you draw these 2 frames first, your ball will stay rather consistent in the in-between frames. You see what I mean? But it's just to illustrate what will happen if you don't plan your animation correctly. Now we're going to draw our next keyframe. I'm going to go to this next blank frame. I'm going to draw. I'm going to erase. There we go. So I think at this point we don't really need our thumbnail sketch. But what I am going to do is I'm going to extend the exposure of our reference sheet. I'm going to hit this, grab the little tab that appears, and then drag it over to frame 2. All right, now we have our reference sheet there. I'm going to click the reference sheet, hit the animate tool, and then drag it back over here. So we can get the 3/4 view that we need. All right, so now we're going to do the second view. I'm going to hit this. You see this middle column? That's referring to when our animation is not rendered. This last one is referring when it is rendered. So I'm going to click that to hide it. But as you can see, it will still render. But if I click to hide it on the eye part or the eye column where it is the render, it won't show. All right, so now with the help of our onion skin, we're going to draw the next frame. So it actually seems like our animation, our key poses aren't really matching up. So what we can do is hit the select tool, select it, and then take these bars on the ends of the circle and resize it like this. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now that we have our first keyframes, we need to make the in-between frame, the frame that links the two keyframes together in our animation. So I'm going to click this, take this little tab that appears, drag it out, and click in the middle. That will make a center frame for us. If we draw on it, now we have a frame there. But in order to make the frame that links these two, we need to be able to see the frame ahead of us too, the next frame. So I'm going to click right here, right on the onion skin bar. As you can see, these circles appear, these little yellow circles. If you click ahead of you, you'll be able to see that frame as well. And you can edit how clear the onion skin is if you go to File, Preferences, and then Onion Skin. And then you can edit the paper thickness. Very thick paper will have a very transparent onion skin, but I'm going to make the paper a little thinner so we can see it easier. So there we go. So next I'm going to make another circle for the head. Make sure it matches up with this one. Select it. I'm going to come up to select, go to rectangular and go to freehand because that's the one I am used to using. I'm going to make this circle a little thinner because I don't really like the wideness of it. There we go. That's about as wide as I want this circle to be. Our first animation, our first keyframe, I mean, its line was here. That's the center line of the face. And the second one is here, like this. So it looks like our line is going to lie right about here in the middle of those two. Yes, this frame is supposed to move down. If you guys are wondering why, it's so that we can maintain an arc for our animation. I'm going to do the future frame like this. And human beings move in arcs, so when you make an animation, make sure that your person moves in an arc motion and you'll always get a natural looking animation. Okay, so now that we have the two keyframes and the breakdown in between them, we can start making the in-betweens. So I'm going to take this, drag the little tab forward till we get another frame, click on it, start drawing, and we can be on our way with our in-betweens. So the way I like to make in-betweens is that you just go right in the middle of these two frames. So let me create a circle first, like that. Make sure it matches the circle that's on the first frame. Always pick one reference frame. Don't use these shapes to reference on multiple frames of your you can if you draw consistently, which a lot of people need to practice, but I do commend you if you can. But if it's hard for you to draw consistently, then just keep referencing one of the drawings that you have, not referencing all of them, because you know, human error. That's why I use the circle tool. So I'm just going to number these frames so I can teach you guys a little trick. This is going to be 1, right? This is going to be the last frame. So I actually I had no predetermination on how long this animation is going to be. So I'm actually going to make this 0. Call that 0. I'm going to make this 1. And then I'm going to make the in-between frame, or the breakdown, I'm going to make that 1/2. Then I'm going to make this is going to be 1/4. Now, this isn't the way you number animations. This is just a tricky way, a weird way that I do my frames. It's kind of a mutation of the timing charts that you learn when you study animation. So this is not professional. This is just what I do. It's just how I number my animation. You're maintaining that arc shape. You see that? All right, now we're going to in between this frame and this one. Also wanted you guys to note that if you guys don't understand everything at first, don't beat yourself up for it. Animation is very complicated stuff. It's really not something that everyone gets on the first try. So don't feel bad because you don't get it, or you have to ask a lot of questions. And definitely don't apologize for questions. That's what this channel is for. That's what my Discord's channel is for. So definitely don't apologize or feel bad for asking so many questions, because we are there to help you. The frame between 1/2 and 1 is going to be 3/4. In order to create that ease in, ease out effect, I'm going to create another in between near the first and the last frame. This is going to make our animation very, very smooth. What's nice about the onion skin is that sometimes you can just draw in between these lines. I wouldn't recommend doing this too much, and definitely watch what you're drawing, because if you do this and you're not paying attention, it can end up making a drawing that does not look good at all. So definitely take that rule with a grain of salt. If you really want to save time, all you have to do is select the eye and then hit Control C, Control V, then drag this and invert it like that. Make sure it's a relatively same size. Maybe it can be a little smaller, like that. Then paste it on the other side. Now lastly, we're going to do a in between. Actually, let's number this first. So 0 to 1/4 is going to be 1/8. So go 0, 0, 1/8, 1/4, which is 2/8, then 1/2. So now let's go to, now we're going to do a 3/4 to 1, which is going to be 7/8. Drag that until we have another frame, and let's get into it. Okay, so this looks pretty good. Yes, it took forever, but we finally have our rough animation complete. Next, we're going to add some colors to this so we can test out the colors that we want to use for our final animation. So I'm going to right click in the color palette area where you see color 1, hit new style. I'm going to drag this to a tan color. Let's see if that's what we want for the skin. This looks pretty good. Yeah, so this is just a test, so don't worry that it looks all messy right now. Hit the color 1, I'm going to put it to black. Actually, we'll keep it on the gray so the colors kind of pop a little more. The colors are kind of stealing the show. And then I'm going to select, I'm going to make another color. Make it this a honey blonde sort of color. Let's see. So I use the raster layer to test out colors, not necessarily as a final color animation. This definitely isn't the final, but I like to test colors on it because it's very easy to add colors. All right, so what we also want to do is that the eyes are separate and the eyes aren't filled in. So I'm just going to close. I'm actually just going to close this right here. Close this so we can add an eye color. Right click, new style. I'm going to make it this crystally blue. Here we go. I'm going to right click, add one more new style, and then it's going to be this yellowish color. That's going to be the eye. This creamish yellowish color. Okay, so now we can name all these colors. I'm going to name this lines. Always name your colors, even if it's on raster. I know it's a little bit tedious, but just be organized, guys. It's always going to help you, just as an animator to an animator. Just always name your colors. Always. It's always going to help you. I'm going to keep using that word one more time. There's no time when naming something is going to hurt you. So please always name your stuff so you can keep it safe and keep it organized. Now that we have our rough animation done, we can move on to the final animation. So what we're going to do is I'm going to hover over down here and click new vector level. And now before I continue, I'm going to check my notes in case I'm missing anything. So what I didn't explain to you guys is actually how you can play your animation and the tools you can use with that. So if you want to play your animation, it's going to play pretty fast right now because we want to look at your FPS right here. It's at 24 FPS. You play it. There we go. Our animation is pretty fast. Hit this play tool right here. I think for you guys, the default play button is P if you want to do that too. You can also hit loop and it will loop the animation. You can just hit pause to stop it. This FPS tool right here, this FPS number is 24. That's the default, so I'm going to set it down to 10. Hit enter, and now our animation plays a lot more slowly, like that. So that does not set the FPS for the render of your animation. The way to set that is you have to hover over to X sheet, scene settings, and set it here. See, it's at 24 still, even though I set mine to 10. I'm going to keep it at 10 in the animation phase until I actually space out the frames in a way that can match the 24 FPS speed. So now we're going to move on to the final animation phase. A lot of you guys can use your mouse for this because vector tools allow you to edit the lines, so you don't have to actually have a drawing tablet to finalize this work. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take this RA column, and you see this little drop, this arrow right here. We're going to click that, drag it down to maybe 52. Yeah, and then we're going to click on the vectors and it's going to look a little more transparent. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw over this with vector lines. I'm going to show you guys how you can use some vector tools to help you shape your drawing. So at first I'm going to hit the brush tool, draw a line like that, draw a line like this, and draw these. So that's obviously not great lines, but if you hover over to this little tool right here, you see a mouse clicking on a line with a dot on it, and you can click that, and then when you click on a line, you can actually bend the line. You can edit the points of the line and edit the arc of the line as well. So this is why I recommend you guys actually use a mouse for this, simply because if you use the shape tool right over here, go over to the line, and you draw a line, then you go to the control point editor, it's called, you got these really nice control points. If you draw it with your hand, the control points are kind of out of whack and they don't really look very consistent. But when you use the shape tool to draw a line to do it, it gets these really nice vector lines, which really help with keeping consistency. So I'm going to hit the select tool, grab this line, Control C, Control V. It's going to paste it somewhere else for me. I'm going to rotate it like this. I'm going to put it right on top. Then I'm going to hit the control point editor again, and then I'm going to edit it to make it symmetrical. You just hit these points over here. You see, this is the easiest part, which is very clean. You can do this with a pen, tablet, but I like to do this with the mouse because it's a little bit easier. If you guys don't like how these lines look, don't actually worry, because you can go right above the style editor, go to vector, and then you have all these options of vector brushstroke types that can accommodate your stylistic needs. So I'm probably going to end up picking one of these. This looks actually really cool, don't you think? So I don't like the way this line looks because it's too thick at the ends. What I can do is hover over to this little pump tool right here. It's called the pump tool. Go to the end of this and then click and drag down. That way my lines can have a smooth fade out, just like that. And if I want to plump up the middle, I just go in the middle and drag up. Pretty cool. So what I decided to do is actually choose one of these vector brushes to draw in, simply because the default one is very unattractive, and as you can see, it looks nothing like the one I'm drawing in. But if you choose one of these, I guess earlier, it'll help you decide what you want the animation to actually look like, and it'll help you get it done faster since you already know what it's going to look like. I recommend choosing one that doesn't cause your computer to slow down, because quite a lot of them have slowed down my computer in the past, so definitely use that tool with some caution. Now that we have all this, we can get to coloring. Now, not all these are going to color correctly. I'm going to do fill check. As you can see, only the face can color. Yeah, so it didn't do a very good job of basically closing all these lines. And what we want to do is we want to go to... Okay, long story short, that didn't work. Do not try to color on a vector layer. It just became a complete nightmare, and I don't want to explain. Maybe I'll tell you guys a story on a live stream someday. What I'm going to do next, I'm actually going to delete this because I actually did it already. I'm going to come over here, click New Toons Raster Level, name it Colors, because we're going to color under the vector layer, within a raster layer. And so we name the layer, and then hit OK, put color right there. So there's two ways you guys can actually create a new layer for things. You can hit this button right here, or if you go in the Basics tab where you can see all these columns, click on a blank column and then hit New Level. So that's pretty much all you got to do. Alright, so now we have our color layer, and we're going to determine all our colors right now. So we're going to go New Style. I'm going to make it the tan color we explored earlier, something like that. Then we're going to name that Skin. Okay. Name this Lines. Now that we have all our colors, I'm going to hit the skin color because I'm going to do the skin first, and then I'm going to head over to this thing right under the paint bucket tool, and it's called the paintbrush tool. And it's going to allow us, you can just draw right on your drawing the colors of your animation. So I'm going to draw the big areas first, and then I'll fill in the small areas after. So this is a lot more work than using the paint bucket tool, but when you use vectors, the coloring engine is, well, I'm not going to say it's broken. It doesn't really register when your lines are closed, so it can be a little bit difficult to color with vectors. However, Opentoonz 1.4 is going to come out soon, so maybe that will be fixed or aided. So we'll wait for that release. I think it's coming out at the end of January, so definitely wait for that because that's going to be a really awesome release. But in the meantime, I'm going to use this paintbrushing tool on a raster layer below our line layer, so we can get this really nice vector line look, because I would use rasters to do it anyway, and you could convert the vector layer to a raster, but man, does this just look really good when you have it on a vector layer, and you get to use those lines, because I mean, look at that texture. We didn't even have to we didn't have to draw that, which is awesome. And this way, when you color it manually, like I said, yes, it does take a longer time, but you can get to really take your time and put the colors where you want them, especially if you have these anime-esque looking eyes. You get to color, basically you get to color where you want. So you see how we didn't have a line for the bottom of the eye. We can just kind of color it like this, although it does look kind of pixely. What we can actually do to remedy that is hit the brush tool, draw a line like this. There we go. I'm actually going to put the smoothness up. I'm going to put the hardness down. Come up to the top and put the hardness down. It gives it a nice, smoother sort of look. I'm going to draw like this. Against the vectors, it does look sort of strange, but we'll have to deal with it. And go back to the paintbrush tool. We can just fill this in like that. So yeah, it's definitely more effective for anime-esque lines. And if you want to erase your colors, hit the eraser tool and go to mode. Areas is where colors are, so you erase that to erase your colors. And then lines are basically lines, the things that you drew in raster layers. We can't erase these lines because they're on a different layer though. So I'm going to hit areas. Okay, so I could do all these frames, but sadly guys, I just simply do not have the time. A time lapse for this video will probably be coming out in the coming weeks, so you'll have to wait for that to get the whole process of me making this. But in the meantime, I'm just going to show you guys how you can render this. So I'm going to take this off of the render so we can just get the line art on there so it looks more consistent. So in order to render, we want to make sure that our background is not transparent. And to edit the background settings, all you got to do is go to X Sheet, Scene Settings, and you see this camera background color. It's a transparent. If we want it to be white like we see right here, you drag this alpha slider all the way up to 255. Also, we can set the frame rate that we want. And since our animation is kind of on ones, like there are no blank frames in between our frames, all we gotta do is go here, and I'm gonna hit 10 because that's kind of the speed that we played it and it looked pretty good. So after that, I'm gonna go to File and go to Output Settings. Make sure that our end is at the end of all our frames. Let's see, we have 12 frames and it says end at 12, so that's pretty good. We're going to go to Name. Make sure to name it. I named it How to Animate in Opentoonz, appropriately named for this tutorial. Click right next to it and select AVI. And we can hit options if you want it to be compressed or not. Honestly, I don't really know what this is. Next, you have to save in. You save in your destination. I'm gonna put it right on my desktop. I'm gonna hit choose, and then you just hit render, and it'll render it for you. It brings up a player where you can play the animation. So that's actually all you have to do, guys. Like I said before, it is pretty complex, so don't feel down if you don't get it right now. There'll be some timestamps in the description for you guys to follow along in the video, because I know it's a long video, but it is necessary because animation is a very complicated process. So thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to join my Discord channel if you have any questions about this tutorial. I want to see a bunch of questions, guys, because I know that not everyone's going to get this on their first try. If you guys want to support the channel, you can go to my Patreon and spend as low as $1 a month to see the sneak peek of the short film I'm making, Castle Dark. And if you want to be included in that short film by means of a character that you design, join the Hog tier so you can participate in the Your Piglet event, where you can design a character that ends up in my film. That's it for me, guys, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.